Welcome to my show. We got a great guest for you today, Amy Silverberg. She's a comedian, published writer, as well as an adjunct professor at USC where she teaches writing. Obviously, very smart, very accomplished, funny lady. I discovered her from watching a Comedy Central YouTube clip that she had. It was about 8 minutes. I highly recommend watching that. It was really funny. I just randomly found it, laughed really hard, and I thought, I got to have her on my podcast. So I actually reached out a few months ago, did not get a response, but thanks to this massive quarantine, I tried again, thinking that she might just have been bored enough to do it, and I'm thrilled to say that she's obviously on my show today. So I learned a lot about her, and if you're a fan, I think you're going to love this episode. And if you're not a fan, well, hopefully you'll become a fan after watching her clip and listening to this great interview I have. So enjoy, Amy Silverberg. Thank you so much for agreeing to do my podcast.
You got it.
So how are you holding up in this quarantine coronavirus thing? Are you stockpiling food and supplies? Are you cleaning? Are you scared?
I'm not really stockpiling. I think I'm keeping pretty calm. I'm definitely anxious about the state of the world in the future, but I'm lucky in that I still have streams of income, and I'm made for quarantine. I like being by myself.
Okay.
I like reading.
Yeah.
I like reality TV.
Yeah. So
how about you?
You're still teaching online, and then are you writing stories and jokes and stuff on top of that?
I'm teaching online. I was working on a TV show on the SyFy channel that hasn't come out yet.
Oh, really?
We went dark. Yeah,
that's exciting.
We were writing from home for another week. And then that ended, and I think we're going to pick back up again for a few more weeks. And I'm just writing, trying to teach myself how to write a movie currently.
Oh, wow. What is the SyFy show? Should we look for that?
It hasn't come out yet, and production went dark, but hopefully it will come out eventually. It's called The Movie Show.
Okay.
And some really talented comedians worked on it, and I think it's with puppets. I think it'll be funny when it is able to be filmed.
Wow. Which comedian? Can you say which comedians?
Yeah, the writer's room was me, Logan Gunselman, Rachel Mack, Tom Takar, and Andy Woodhull.
Okay, I'm not familiar. I'll have to check all those comedians. I love
great.
discovering.
You'll really like all of them. Yeah,
I love discovering new comedians.
Comedy Central sets, actually.
Yeah, so I mean, you've got to be. You said reality TV. Are you watching The Tiger King? I feel like there's going to be a lot of stand-up about that.
I did watch The Tiger King. I had actually listened to a podcast about him.
Really? Before the show came out?
A long time ago. Yes, a long time ago. And when people started tweeting about it, I was like, has everybody suddenly listened to this podcast? But I thought I was the only one who listened to it. And it turned out, no, there was a Netflix documentary that everybody is. I'm also like a 90 Day Fiance and cooking shows, all the Bravo Housewives. I like all that crap.
Oh yeah, my girlfriend watches all that. So I can't stand those people. Like they just irritate me like fingernails on a chalkboard. I don't know what.
Well, have you ever tried 90 Day Fiance? That's a wild one.
No. Okay, I'll give anything a shot. I tried the Love Is Blind. I tried because another comedian had recommended that. He goes, "Oh, it's so crazy. It's so people hate watch it." And I tried to even hate watch it. I'm like, I can't stand these people.
Yeah, it's wild. 90 Day Fiance is. I've never watched a show that had such high stakes and so little to gain. Like these women coming over from different countries to marry like weird men in Kentucky.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I'll have to give that a shot. So let's talk about you a little bit more though. You were raised Jewish, but now you are more agnostic. But I wanted to ask you about...
Well, I'm still Jewish, I would say.
Really? Okay. So you still do all the holidays and things?
Well, I mean, I guess how I feel about it now is no different than how I was raised. I haven't made any kind of a shift.
Right.
My parents are always like, so when I think about being Jewish, I think about it more like culturally than I do anything else. But my parents will come down for like the high holidays and go to temple.
Yeah.
And then we'll stay for 20 minutes and go eat at a deli.
That's like a very Jewish thing to do. Delis, right?
Yes, yeah. I always associate being Jewish with like calling your grandma and being guilted by your parents. And
yes, that's. I wanted to ask you about the guilt because I was raised Catholic, so we have Catholic guilt. and there's Jewish guilt, but I feel like Jewish guilt is different than Catholic guilt in the sense that it doesn't, Catholic guilt is all about like shame, mostly about sex, but Jewish guilt doesn't seem to have shame about sex, right?
No. Yeah. So I think one of the best things about being a Jew, I mean, I think it probably depends on every family. I have like a feminist mom who was very cool and normal about sex and gave me like great advice when I was growing up.
Right.
Which was, she always said that I shouldn't wait until marriage to have sex. She thought that was bizarre. And I don't even need to wait till I'm in love, but that I should wait to only sleep with someone who respects me. And I'm always like, whenever I think back on that, I'm like, what good advice.
Yeah, definitely. That's very good advice. And then you said...
Yeah, my guilt is always like that I don't spend enough time with them.
That's what it is. Not spending enough time with family.
So.
Yeah, that's right. And then your dad, you said he's kind of more like Larry David-y, as you described him?
Yeah, he is Larry David-y, and he's the one who does all the guilt. He's like a real old school guilty Jew.
But both your parents were pretty funny. Like your mom makes fun of you on Twitter and stuff.
Yeah. They are funny. They like my stand-up. They're not like embarrassed by dirty jokes.
Right, because your dad sits in the audience, right? A lot of times.
Yeah. He's whenever I perform, and I'm from Orange County originally, and whenever I go to Orange County, they see me so many times. They're like, "Is this going to be new material? Or have we seen this?"
So besides your parents, what other comedy and writing influences did you have growing up? Was there certain books or movies or TV shows that really spoke to you?
I was a big Seinfeld fan.
Oh, yes.
That
must be why I love your comedy so much.
Well, thank you. And I'm now a Curb Your Enthusiasm fan.
Me too. That show's great.
Oh, yeah. It's so funny. And my dad really admired stand-up when I was growing up and admired comedians. And I'm sure that has something to do. I wanted my dad's attention, and it seemed like the easiest way to get it was to get on stage somewhere in my subconscious. I only put that together much later, but seems related.
What about?
I listened to a lot of Chris Rock when I was
he's great. Was there any teachers that inspired you in terms of for the writing, like either encouraged you and said you were great, or maybe the opposite, like they said you suck, and so then you wanted to like show them that you were going to be really good?
No,
writer?
I mean, I had good experiences with teachers. Yeah, I've had great teachers I was only ever good at the one thing. So I didn't do great in math. I didn't do great in science. I was interested in writing and reading really from the beginning. And that shows on all my like test scores. It seems like two different people like took the verbal portion and the math portion.
Of course.
Like a really dumb person took the math portion. And I still have trouble, with math. And I disagree with anybody who says it's required because I have a calculator.
Yeah, no, exactly. And you have a doctorate in creative writing or whatever, so you didn't need the math to get that, right? I mean, I'm trying a lot of math to... And then, so you ended up going...
I always argue with people when they say writing isn't important and they're math people, but the older I get, I'm like, maybe some people just... You are allowed to be good at one thing.
Definitely.
And what's the word? Have other people do the other.
Exactly.
thing.
Hire someone to do the stuff you suck at. So,
hire someone,
I'm terrible at yard work, so I'd always hire people to do them.
Yes.
But
I'm bad at all that sort of domestic stuff.
Yeah, so... You actually went to the same school. I interviewed, I don't know if do you know Mo Mandel? He's a comedian in LA. He went You do? Okay. You guys went to the same school, the University of Cal in Santa Barbara. And I was like,
big party school.
Yeah. In fact, he said it was really debaucherous. So I think that's like one of the most beautiful parts of the whole country. So what was it like for you going to school there?
I just actually did stand up there pretty recently.
Yeah.
And it was so fun and strange.
Is that when you went out with Pete you went out with the people for pizza? They're like, we always ask the comedians to go out for pizza, and like, you're the first one that ever said yes. But
yes, yeah, good memory. Yes, it was I was the only person who said yes, and I just downed 3 slices of pizza while they chatted, like a real cheap Jew. Just kidding. I don't believe that stereotype is at all true. It was really beautiful. It was too much partying for me. In all honesty, I was in a sorority, and when I look back at myself at that time, it felt like I was waiting for my life to start I
Oh,
knew that I wanted to be a writer and a comedian, and I wasn't doing it then. I
yeah.
was just hungover and reading a lot of books, and my life got a lot better when I started doing those things after college. I felt a lot more like myself.
Did you get your PhD there, or where did you get your doctorate?
No, I did an MFA and a PhD both at USC.
Oh, that was 3 years ago. And that's where you teach now. Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah,
correct.
you've had stories written in all these things. I mean, a lot of this stuff I haven't heard of, but like Best American Short Stories of 2018, that's got to be a pretty select few that get into that one, right?
Yeah, that was cool. That anthology was edited by Roxanne Gay, who is a friend of mine and also someone I really admire. So that was cool for me.
Is it hard to get your writing published? Like, how does that work? Because I'm assuming there's a lot of work you've done that didn't get published, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of years. I'm a slow writer too, and I started writing I had read so much before I ever started writing, and I think that's really key. Anytime I have a student who wants to be a writer and they don't really read, I think that's so crazy. Because you have to read to know what's good, even. And that's, I think somebody once told me a long time ago, and I think about this all the time, that there's no such thing as a natural writer. There are only natural readers, so that by the time you sit down to write, you've read so many good sentences that it can come out of you sort of like in a way that seems natural. But actually, it's just because you've read and absorbed so much.
Right. No, that makes sense. It's interesting that a kid would want to be a writer and not like read.
Yeah,
like, what do they want to write
to be a comedian and not watch other people do stand-up.
Right. Yeah. So with the stand-up, you started writing jokes and the fiction, but when did you actually first go on stage with the comedy? Was that like an open mic show or one of those bringer shows?
Yeah, I was still in an MFA, and this friend of mine that I worked with at USC told me that she knew a girl that was doing a lot of stand-up who wanted to write more, and I wanted to start doing stand-up. So she was like, I'll introduce you guys, and then, you'll have a lot to talk about. And that girl is Rachel Mack, and we wrote on that TV show together recently, and we ran a show together for 5 years, which is a pretty long time in LA.
Yeah.
At a coffee shop in Pasadena, and she was the one who took me to my first open mic. But before that, I was already, like, it wasn't a surprise to anyone that I wanted to do stand-up. I was already, like, I was voted class clown in high school and all that stuff.
Right.
I was already performing, sort of telling stories to everyone.
Yeah, because your comedy style, it's very like a storytelling style. Like, it just seems very natural. The first clip I saw you, I mean, it was like you just got up and started telling stories like you almost hadn't rehearsed them. So like, either you're really good at telling stories that are true, or you're a very good actress who can make those stories sound very natural and true, or is it a combination of both of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think writing and my style of stand-up definitely go hand in hand in terms of, I would say my fiction seems sort of breezier than it is. Also, I'm pretty painstaking about like the sentences and the words.
Yeah.
But it can seem pretty, like easy, as opposed to sort of tortured sentences, or I'm not like I'm more of a plain, like a minimalist.
But so are the stories you tell, are they like 100% true, or you embellish them, or you totally make them up?
Yeah, I embellish them.
Right.
There's like a kernel of autobiographical truth.
Okay.
And then I tell them at open mics or tell them to friends, and I sort of discover the punchline. Every now and then a story will come in, like feel like it's presented to you. It's like a gift, just like a perfect thing to tell on stage. But for the most part, I'm making up the punchline, really.
The punchline, but some of the like you really had the friend that had that heated up the Eggo waffles between her legs.
Yes, it's like that little part is true. Somebody putting it in between her legs, and she was so drunk. But then all the rest is sort of made up. Same with like the skydiving story, a guy thing.
Right. You do like
saying a few things to me and giving me a tour, but like all the, it's like you find the laugh lines and you find the punchline. Those are kind of made up.
Sure. So like when you tell that skydiving story and you kind of do the voice like this, do you do any other voices besides? I love voices and like impersonations, even if it's like of me.
Oh, I mean, I'm flattered that you even think that's an impersonation. I think of myself as so not an act out person or actress, and that the only voices I can do are really just my own in different volumes.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I think I imitate Friends, but it's all sort of like my own voice. I don't think of myself as an actress in any way.
And you don't want to do acting very much then?
No, I write a lot of different genres, and I do stand up, and that sort of keeps me busy. And I've never been, like when I've talked to my agents about it, I've never been into the idea of going on auditions. I went on one audition and I couldn't even remember the lines. And the person doing the audition was like, "You even want to act?" And I was like, "No, I guess not."
Gotcha. So that's not
I feel pretty unnatural acting. I would definitely be in something that a friend wrote for me.
Yeah.
I'd play myself, but I think acting's so much harder than it looks. I'm not a natural at it. I admire the people who go on 5,000 auditions and get turned down 5,000 times. I'd rather be writing and get turned down 5,000 times for that.
Oh, no, that makes sense. Yeah, because it's a time investment for sure. I know these like really talented comedians. Do you know Fahim Anwar? He's like a LA comedian. He's from Seattle, my hometown.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he would talk about going on all these auditions, and I'm like, how does he not have his own sitcom yet? Like, I think he's hilarious, but it's just that's how competitive it is.
There's so many rejections that go into every. When I look at my how many stories of mine have been rejected, it's so many more than the ones that have been accepted.
Mm-hmm.
Like you were asking before. I wrote for so many years before I published anything.
Yeah. So your comedy style is like it's dirty, and your parents are cool with it, obviously. But have you ever had any negative reactions from the crowd? Like, you've ever been booked in a?
I mean, I don't think of my stuff as being unusually dirty. I guess.
Well, not unusually, but it's like, I mean, you got some kind of dirty jokes, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny that you say that. I'm making an effort to write more clean material so that I can do maybe more like a corporate event, something like that, where it can be family friendly.
Yeah.
And it's definitely not my favorite thing to write. Sort of stuff about just being a woman always sounds a little bit more urgent to me. And
what do you mean by that?
Stuff has to do. I don't know. It often has to do with sex. I think all I can say is the stuff that I find more urgent to talk about on stage can skew a little bit dirtier, but it doesn't always. I had one show in recent memory that I was just way too dirty for the crowd. That was like at a yoga studio.
Really?
And the guy who went before me was just so clean cut, and they really loved it. And then I had a specific set that I wanted to run about a breakup, and they weren't. I was too dirty. They were shaking their heads and.
No, I think that's why you're kind of like, I don't know. I think of you as kind of like on the fringe in some ways, kind of, but not like super dirty, but I don't know. You're like a comedian's comedian, I think. Cause I watch a lot of comedy. So stuff that's like more mainstream, I'm kind of like, okay. Like I kind of know how this is going, but your stuff, I was like, wow, I didn't know where you were going with it. So that's why.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
That's such a nice compliment. I do think it has to do with, doing a lot of open mics in LA. The scene in LA, the comics are so good, and there's so many of us,
right?
That you really have to get good quickly. And I just think open mics are the best practice because nobody is laughing out of politeness, especially in the beginning when you don't have friends there.
Yeah, and
you see every sort of old premise. But I think sometimes people who are doing the road a lot. The crowds can be, or have started in cities where the crowds are a little bit more generous. They're able to talk about like the same kind of Tinder stuff that the crowds will react to. But then if they come in LA and do it, the crowds don't react, and it's like a surprise to them. And I think starting in LA, as stressful as it is, it helps in that way. You feel like, I've really had to try to get as unique as possible.
Well, right,
because just this idea of what are the premises that other people haven't used.
Yeah, and when you're doing open mics for LA comedians, like you kind of have to be a comedian's comedian because they're the audience of most of the open mics, right? I mean, it's mostly other comedians that are listening, so you have to impress them. That's hard to make them laugh.
yes, then you do it long enough, and the opposite happens where I sometimes feel I do mics and I see my friends, and then they laugh, and then I go do it for an audience who doesn't know me. I'm like, oh, my friends were just laughing. They like that because they all know me. So
exactly.
that happens too. Some sort of switch occurs.
So now you actually co-host. Do you still do 3 monthly stand-up shows?
No, I need to update my website.
You don't?
So
Okay.
Bitspace was my longest running show. That was 5 years.
Yeah.
And we retired that. It was in Pasadena, and we've just been doing it for so long. That I retired most recently. I had a show before that, which was this very cute outdoor show that ran for 2 years called Wolf Den. And that show got shut down by the neighbors because we ran it outside in a cute backyard of a friend of mine. But I'm still running What Now, which is in the Improv Lab
Hollywood
with
Improv
Noah Finling, who's also great.
Okay. So since you do co-host these stand-up shows, are there, besides the comedians that you've already mentioned earlier, is there other comedians that you've seen a lot of that the world hasn't seen yet that are about to break?
I mean, so many. I think LA, like I could list you 50 names, Wow. I love some of them. I consider that they've already broken just because I admire them, but I guess broken is if like the rest of the world knows about them.
Mm-hmm.
But I love Deborah DiGiovanni. She's a Canadian. I think she's like famous in Canada, but not yet in America. Jared Goldstein's a great comic. Otsko Kotska, she's very funny, very unique. There's so many. I could list and list. I do think LA, and obviously I'm biased, and I started here and I live here, but has the best comics around. Oh yeah, New York does too. He's a great comic that I think is underrated. Who's that? Finn Straley. Okay, I'll have to check all those guys out. Do you ever get to perform at the Comedy Store or the Laugh Factory? Those are two of the big ones there, right? Yeah, I prefer the Improv. Is my favorite, where I do the most at. I like the Comedy Store. I've never performed at the Laugh Factory. It's still kind of a mystery to me, but I like the Ice House also. I mean, we have great clubs in LA. I think I probably do more of the East Side alternative shows, and those are usually my favorite. Stuff like Hot Tub at the Virgil, and Good Heroin, those East Side shows. But yeah, the Comedy Store has some of the best crowds. Yeah, I've been there a couple times. Amazing. But so you did that. So I found you from that Comedy Central clip, which is hilarious stuff. It has like over 3 million views, but I want to break it down. So first of all, how did Comedy Central get involved with that? Did they find you, or was it like, was this film? Yeah, they reached out to me. I think just because I've been doing stand-up for kind of a long time in LA, and I think enough people see you in different shows. Okay. That then they think like, okay, we've seen enough of her varied material that we think she'll do well on here, I think, is my guess. Yeah, that's really cool. So those are so great, those Comedy Central presents, because I watch a lot of those 8-minute clips, and they're always really strong. Where is that filmed? Is that filmed in the Hollywood Improv Lab, or is it? No, that's filmed at the Satellite. Okay. Which is on the East Side, and is like a very cool venue. They have other great shows there, actually. Brandon Wardell runs a good show there. Okay. That's cool. So in that clip, you tell a story about one of your students writing a story about wanting to have sex with you, and he's a football player, and he's from USC. And you said, I heard on a podcast that you said he now plays for the Seahawks. So I'm a big Seahawks fan. So I think I figured out who it is. No. If you say it, I won't be able to confirm. Okay. So I won't say it then. I don't want to. I don't know what the rules are, but I feel like it's but I think I figured out. A lot of people ask me. Yeah, I think I won't say his name. I don't want to throw you under the bus, but I think I figured out who it was. But that was one of those ones. That was a true story, right? Or is you kind of embellished that? Or? Yeah, so it's like a true kernel. Sometimes I tell the story so many times, like I really, try to sharpen up every line of the joke, so that I can't even remember what was the true part and what was the fake part, which probably has more to say about my memory than anything else. Right. Or that I believe my own bullshit. But they could write a story about anything. He wrote a story about wanting to have sex with his teacher, and that all the rest is some is true, some is not.
Yeah, no, that was so, I was laughing so hard. That whole 8 minute Comedy Central thing really just like immediately made me a fan of you. I was like, wow, this is
Oh,
like,
well, thank you.
that
I
was
really
amazing.
appreciate that.
And then I read a story, this one might be totally fiction. You wrote a story in Split magazine about
Oh,
somebody
all
who,
my fiction
it's totally,
is, yeah, all my fiction is made up. Every
okay.
now and then it'll be like, I mean, I did go on a date with a comedian.
Yeah.
Is that the one you're
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
about?
the one where you dated a famous comedian. I was going to ask you,
Yeah, I
and
mean,
then
I went
yeah.
on one date with a comedian who is not even famous, but
Oh.
is more well known than me.
Mhm.
I don't know if you consider him famous or not. Jake Wiseman, he knows what the story is about him,
Oh.
and he and I are still good friends. And it's more like fiction, so it's so mysterious how it comes together. It's like I will have like just a line kind of running through my head, and then all the rest is kind of made up. And because I write a lot of fiction in first person, people will be like, I didn't know that you were married and divorced. And I'll be like, no, that was I just like a first person narrator. Makes
Right.
it feel a little bit more immediate.
No, that makes sense. So you have dated some comedians though?
I have never seriously dated a comedian. All my serious boyfriends have been like in improv or sketch.
That's right. That's
sort
right.
of in the world of comedy, but not. But I have like had flings with a few comedians. I've only slept with 2 comedians, which I think for as long as I've done stand up is pretty few.
Yeah.
But I try to keep that part separate.
Yeah, that would get kind of messy for sure. But
yeah, and I have a lot of guy friends in stand up, and I like having them as my guy friends, and I try not to complicate it. Brad Stolmetzer, he's another great comedian, and he and I sort of dated kind of a long time ago, and he and I talk about it all the time because we're close friends, and if we're ever on a show together, or if I've hosted a show that he's on, I'll always bring him up and be like, oh, I know this comic intimately, we slept together, and then he has to dig out of that when it's his turn to go up, which, I just do to be an asshole.
So when you're hanging out with a bunch of these comedians, are you guys like trying to one-up each other, try to be the class clown, or?
No, I think that's sort of exhausting. I see that in people who've just started stand-up where they're still sort of like performing, but I think, something about being in both worlds, like literature and stand-up, is I think that stand-up comedians are some of the smartest, most deeply feeling, most well-read people that I know, and I think writers are some of the funniest people I know. And I think
interesting.
When I'm with comics, I don't feel often that there are a few people I know that when we get together, we're just trying to make each other laugh. But comics are also who I go to when I'm like going through a breakup or sad about something, and they're pretty smart and thoughtful people.
Yeah, no, a lot of the people I've interviewed, a lot of the New York comedians I've interviewed are some of the smartest people that, again, I feel like comedians, people that watch a lot of comedy, you can, listen to those kind of smart people, and it's totally different than mainstream, than a lot of the mainstream comedy.
Yeah,
Nothing against
well, and
the
it
mainstream.
takes a lot of intelligence to construct a joke.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So you were on another, besides the Comedy Central thing you were on a thing called Inside Joke with how do I say his name?
Asif Ali. He's
Asif
a great
Ali.
comic
Yeah,
too, that I
yeah.
recommend.
Yeah. So he's a member of the Goat Face, which Fahim is part of that as well. And I watched.
Oh, I didn't even know that. Asif's like a big time actor now.
Yeah. No, they're
so wrecked.
And the Goat Face also has the guy from The Daily Show. I forget.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Hassan Minaj. Yeah. But so that
his own show, right?
Yeah. So then, and you can watch that free on Amazon Prime. So that must have been cool to get. How did you get involved in that? He just reach out to you, or?
A producer of his reached out to me, and he and I just knew each other out, doing stand up. Yeah, okay. He's a great comic, and he's a really generous person, and I think at that time that was like my only internet TV credit.
Okay.
And it was like I hadn't been doing stand up for that long, so I feel grateful to him for that opportunity. And he's just also known as one of the nicest guys. Yeah,
no, that's very cool. And you were also on the other TV credits that you had. You were on Wheel of Fortune, right? Which you?
Wheel of Fortune. Yes, I was on one other stand up show, which was originally on Hulu, called Coming to the Stage. I think it might now be on Amazon Prime. I don't know.
Mm.
But yes, I was on Wheel of Fortune also.
Yeah, tell me about that. So my brother was on that show too. And so
How did he do?
he screwed up. He said it was something like where it was like easily Switzerland, but I think he just kind of had a brain fart and he messed up. So he just got the consolation prize. But you correctly guessed the phrase, he's just not that into you, but then somehow you still didn't win?
No, we didn't win. I was with a friend. So I had a friend, Marielle Joachim, a great writer. She was working at LA Magazine at the time, and they gave her an assignment, which was all the things that you should do in Los Angeles, even if you live here. And one of them was to audition for a game show. So I don't know. I think they set it up for her that she would get an automatic audition, but not that she would automatically be on it. And they were like, you have to do it right away. You have to do it tomorrow. You have to find someone that's available tomorrow to audition with you, because the show we were auditioning for was called Girlfriend Getaway. So just pairs of best friends would compete against each other, female best friends. And I happened to be free because it was summer and I wasn't teaching and I wasn't writing on anything. And we went to audition, and the audition process was very simple. All you had to do was be really enthusiastic and be able to spell words.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's got to be easy for you with the PhD in writing and stuff. I mean,
yeah, I had never watched a full Wheel of Fortune episode.
Oh, really?
But no, I'm more of a Jeopardy fan, even though I think Jeopardy's too hard for me. I'd watched clips of it, but I had never, it's self-explanatory. And we came in second place.
So would that be your first choice? That wasn't, I mean, if you're not a fan, wouldn't you have a different show? I guess you said Jeopardy. You didn't try to go on Jeopardy though?
No, I don't think I'm smart enough for Jeopardy. I only know 2 categories.
Which 2?
Books and that's it. I know one category. Books and comedians.
No, I know.
I certainly don't know any history or geography or.
But you know about Weiner dogs. So let's talk about Weiner dog. You had like kind of an obsession with W.D.s, as you call them.
Yeah, I love W.D.s. Yeah, wow, you really did a lot of research on me. I'm so impressed.
Yeah, so tell me.
I love Weiner dogs.
Yeah, you stood in line to get. Tell me about this. You stood in line to get a dog's autograph. Like you are a very educated woman. You've been published, but you stood in line to get a dog's autograph from a dog that wrote a book, or a book about a dog.
Well,
it
was a calendar. Yeah.
Okay.
I really recommend Crusoe, the celebrity dachshund, on Instagram. He does a lot of dogs, a lot of activities. I've never owned a Weiner dog. I just like the look of
that. That is the other fascinating thing to me. You're obsessed with Weiner dogs, but you've never even owned one.
I think if I owned one, it might. It wouldn't be the same. I like having never had one. And looking at them from afar.
Do you if you see one, do you go pet it though, or?
Oh yeah, I freak out.
Okay. Huh.
I try to take pictures with it.
And you've always had that obsession, or do you remember when that started?
Somebody told me that I looked like a wiener dog if they had to pick a dog, like small body, small limbs. I'm pretty small. I'm only 5 feet.
Oh.
And
I guess in that way it's a compliment.
Like I do. Yeah, I love a hound type dog, floppy ears, snout. I prefer a hound to like a fluffy dog, though I love all dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just became a bit, but I kept hearing that I'm a dog, or on and on.
Wow, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, to say the least.
Oh, another thing that you love, Howard Stern. You're a big Howard Stern fan.
Yeah, I'm a big Howard Stern fan.
How did when did you get into that?
Me growing up too. My parents are like kind of older Jews, and they were big fans. And I would listen in the car with my mom, and my parents were like that type that didn't lower the radio when it got like inappropriate. They would just say things like, "Oh, don't listen to this," but keep listening.
Your parents sounded way cooler than mine.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, yes. In other ways, it's driven me crazy, but for the most part. And then when I was able to afford my own satellite radio, because I was on my family plan, I still listened, like starting in, I think, high school, college. And I love a lot of stuff about Howard. I think he's sort of misunderstood, and there are things, of course, that I cannot excuse some sexism, but I also think he's really evolved over the years, and he's one of those people that, again, is both misunderstood and like deeply thoughtful and neurotic, but also like funny and perverted. And when he talks about his obsession with sex, I think it's pretty interesting because it's less to do with like just being horny and more to do with this idea of why is this subject that everybody thinks about and has so taboo. And
it's like almost like he's being honest.
Yeah, what were you saying? Yeah, exactly. And he's big on like anti-hypocrisy. I think like these right-wing Christian dudes who say they, you know, it shouldn't be on TV, and then at the same time they're like, or they're advocating against gay marriage, and then at the same time they're like secretly seeing, you know, young men, stuff like that. Like that, he's sort of against that.
Well, and he's such a good interviewer. I think people that don't, if you don't like him, whatever, like, I mean, I even listened to, I've listened to like almost all of his interviews, even if it's somebody that you're not a fan of. You might not like their music or their movies or even their politics, but you listen to his interviews and you get to know the person. You're like, wow, okay, I like this person a lot more now that I know about them.
Yes, he also reminds me of both good writers and good comedians in that he's sort of obsessed with the minutia of people's lives. Like, what do they eat for breakfast? What positions do they have sex in? How's their house decorated? Like, stuff like that. I think is the stuff you think about when you're writing fiction, the stuff you think about when you're telling jokes. I wrote a pilot that's based on him.
Really?
And I have a novel that's sort of like that I'm trying to write that's about a sort of famous taboo radio host, 3 children, and what it's like to grow up in that legacy. So yeah, he's had a big influence on my thinking, I'd say.
Well, I hope you can get that pilot in the works. That'd be cool to see that.
Yeah, that would be,
That'd be really neat. So let's see, what else can we talk about? Teaching. So you said if you weren't a teacher and a comedian, you'd be a welder?
Oh, I mean, I think I was just joking. I wouldn't be good at welding. No, teaching is the best. It's the best day job. I can only imagine teaching college because you don't have to adjust your personality very much. Right. I think the welding thing, every now and then, if I'm really anxious, I have a really hard time being creative. And I always wish that my job, not to say that these jobs are easy at all, but I wish that my job was just working with my hands in this way that maybe you could turn your brain off a little bit.
Yeah, more concrete. Yeah, no, I think of that stuff all the time.
Yes, more concrete, exactly.
So with the teaching, like, because you teach the intro, so it's almost like I worked in education for like 17 years, so I know like how kids...
Oh yeah, what did you do?
I was a guidance counselor.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. It sucked. But like kids, they always have excuses. So it sounds like I always thought like when kids go to college, okay, now they're kind of growing up, but you said that kids will still like give you all sorts of excuses. Like I never heard of this scam, but so one thing that kids do is they send a blank document on the due date. And then the next day they send the real one. They say, oops, I forgot to attach the time.
Apparently one of my students turned in an essay, I think it was, where they had the title page and the rest of the document was blank. Yeah. But I actually believe that it was by accident.
Oh, okay.
A pretty good student that seemed on top of things, and she really seemed surprised and horrified when there weren't. But also, if you're looking at my tweets, those are, again, like stand up. I take a kernel of something and then make it up. I know all my students read my Twitter now, and I think they all watch my Comedy Central set, so I'm sure that they're always looking for stuff about them. They seem to get a kick out of that. Yeah,
so and I know it's got to be, or you said, I guess it's kind of not awkward to talk about sex or whatever in front of your parents with comedy, but it doesn't bother you with the kids have heard this stuff either? Like it just,
we definitely don't discuss it in class. And if they bring it up, I say, you can't come to any shows, and I can't.
Right.
I guess I can't prohibit them.
And
they seem to have like a pretty good sense of like they'll sometimes come to shows after the class has ended, or they'll follow me on Twitter after the class has ended.
Oh, okay.
Nobody's done anything sort of inappropriate. One of my students was like, if I memorized your Comedy Central set and did it for the class, could I get extra credit? And I was like, no, but I did think that was funny.
Yeah, that's hacky though. If you copy someone else's, that's flattering.
I think she just meant she would do it for the class, like as a funny thing for the class.
Yeah.
And I was like, listen, I'd love to say yes and give you extra credit, but the step's also too dirty to ever allow anyone to say it.
Right. Well, so and the university doesn't care if you do that kind of stuff, I guess.
No, I mean, I'm an adult, and those kids are adults.
That's true.
And
it's not like K through 12.
I always say, and everybody in my department knows about it. I always say that to my students and to my department, really, that I am a writer and a comedian who also teaches, not the other way around. I never set out to be a professor. And sometimes I'll go on meetings and people will be like, would you mind not teaching anymore? Like if this job took over, whatever job it is, writing job. And I'm always like, I would quit in the middle of class. I would drop the piece of chalk and walk right out. I love teaching. It's the best day job, but it was never really my end goal. And the way that I teach also is sort of like from a working writer perspective as opposed to from like an academic scholar perspective.
No, and I think those are the best teachers that I've had, are people that were actually doing, like I had a counseling supervisor in my master's program, and she didn't work for the university. They just kind of like contracted with her. She was actually a counselor. And so then she gave me the feedback, and it was like the best feedback. The people that worked at the school didn't know what they were talking about, but she was actually doing it. So sometimes those are the best teachers, I feel like.
Yeah, totally. And I try to think of like, well, if I was in college, what would seem more urgent to me or useful? And then try to teach from that perspective as opposed to like from a tower somewhere far away that's not really useful to the students' everyday lives.
Yeah. No, that's very good. Now
I have a friend actually who lost her job because she teaches junior high, and a parent got a hold of a set that she did. And I think that's the other good thing about teaching college is they're adults and you're not answering to people's parents.
Yeah, no, that's way better than the K through 12 is definitely, it's scary. When I was in education, that's why part of the reason I quit, I was like, I want to pursue like the podcast stuff and other things. I don't want to be worried about, so I just quit. I was like, I'm done. I'm kind of was burnt out at that point anyways, but
totally. No, I hear what you're saying.
Are you still going to therapy? You had you said that you had mild anxiety that you like talking to people about.
Yeah, I love therapy.
Is it helpful?
Sorry,
with the anxiety? Is it just is it helpful? Like you still do that?
Oh yeah, I mean I think my anxiety is pretty minimal Jewish daughter anxiety. I've never been on any kind of like medication or anything. I try to meditate and I should exercise more. But I'm a huge fan of therapy, especially when you don't have some urgent problem because you're just sort of discussing the way you move through the world. And,
so you can actually just grow as a person too.
Exactly.
Cool.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well,
I think everyone should be in therapy.
No, totally. Yeah.
I wish it was more fiscally.
Right. Well, even if you have health insurance, I think they only give you like 8 sessions or something like that.
I have good health insurance and I have to use good therapists, and I still, when I look at that bill, I'm like, oh, yikes.
Yeah. Well, so I always like to end up with a charity that the guest is passionate about. Did you have something for that?
Oh, right. Man, I love Planned Parenthood.
Planned Parenthood. Okay. That's a big one. Yeah, for sure. They do a lot of work.
They do. Yes. So much good work, and we need them now more than ever, including in quarantine. People still need.
How does that work with the quarantine?
Healthcare.
Are they not supposed to? I don't know what the rules are. Like I've just like been literally staying at home with just me and my girlfriend. Like we haven't seen it. But like if you're single, are you supposed to be like meeting up with other people? And like how does that work?
No, I don't think you're supposed to be, but people still do. I just think I picture somebody being sort of like trapped in a scenario where they need that kind of health care, whether it's an abortion or whether it's simply just family planning, but don't have the money for like a gynecologist. But they need Planned Parenthood now more than ever.
Well, they say there's going to be a lot of quarantine babies because of this. So
a lot of COVID babies, and a lot of divorces and relationships starting. So.
Yeah. Are you in a relationship? No, you have a boyfriend, right? A living boyfriend? No.
No, I don't.
Not currently. Okay.
I'm current. Yeah.
So
currently.
You're in that mix then of single people that are kind of stuck. Do you have a roommate or anything? Or
I don't have a roommate. No, I live alone.
So, and are you seeing any people? Like, are you going to see your parents at all? Or are you just staying home?
I visited my parents. Yeah, but for the most part, I'm really trying to stay on my own. I'm also a type 1 diabetic, so
Oh.
I'm like technically not immunocompromised because my blood sugars are always in pretty good control.
Mm-hmm.
I have the, childhood kind.
Okay.
Same as Nick Jonas. That's the person I always mention, and Halle Berry.
Okay.
And, but it's like something that if I were to get it, I would have to go to the hospital and it would be a pain. So I try to.
Wow. Yeah, no, I don't think I have anything, but I'm still, because I keep hearing all these stories of people that had no underlying conditions. They were totally healthy.
Yes.
And then boom, they drop dead. It's like really scary.
Well, I mean, I also really think it's the seemingly healthy people that are the carriers. They have
right. That's true. I'm just,
and then they walk around.
Exactly. I'm acting like I have it and everyone else has it too. So
yeah, I think that's smart, or that it could be on any doorknob that you go.
Yeah, exactly. And then like I went to the grocery store today and I'm like coming back, I'm like, am I supposed to wipe down everything I bought? This is getting a little exciting. I
know. At some point you just sort of have to hope for the best.
Yeah, I put stuff in the freezer. I'm like, I think the freezer kills it. I hope.
Oh, all right.
I don't know. I hope so.
That
but
seems smart to me.
Yeah. So you've definitely been added to my list of favorite comedians with just a few clips I've seen. I'm excited for more. So you mentioned the TV show. Do you have anything else on the horizon?
I'm not on that TV show, except maybe
your writing is though, right?
Yes, writing on it. Yeah. Yes. I think I have. They told me I had a role, though we haven't gone into production because of everything that happened. But I was supposed to make out with a puppet. So hopefully that still.
Oh, I can't wait to see this. And is there any other?
I have a lot of writing in the works.
Books, short stories?
Short stories, and also of like TV and movies that I'm working on.
Great.
I hope it comes about.
So are you kind of taking like the Whitney Cummings route a little bit? Like, cause she co-wrote and created Two Broke Girls, but she wasn't in that show, right?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times lately people are interested in me adapting my short stories for different things. So I already own the IP, obviously, anyway, the intellectual property.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of figuring out how something you wrote in prose could work as a TV show or a movie. And that's in quarantine, sort of what I'm trying to figure out.
Or what about, are you going to have new stand-up, like maybe eventually a full special for us?
Yeah, I would love to.
Okay.
I mean, it's always sort of what I'm working towards, but I have nothing to announce at this moment.
Okay. Well, I look forward to that. Well, thank you so much for coming on my little podcast here. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it was a pleasure. Thank you.
And if I'm in LA, I'll definitely have to come see you along with all the other comedians I've interviewed. So awesome.
Definitely let me know.
I will. Thank you so much.
And take care.
Okay. Bye-bye, Amy. Thanks.
Right. Bye-bye.
All right. So Amy Silverberg, gosh, she's so funny. You guys got to check out her stand-up. I hope you enjoyed the interview. Definitely follow her on social media. She's on Twitter. Definitely Instagram, I think Facebook, but she's got a website. I think she's going to update that, and I will definitely share anything that she posts that's funny, or if she has any updates like with the TV show and whatnot. So you can follow me. I'm on Instagram as well, and until next time, enjoy.